Anytime I mention aliens, which personally for me is really not very often at all, I do it fully realizing I might alienate half of everyone listening, because it's one of those topics that people tend to get really passionately upset about if they disagree with the person's viewpoint. My viewpoint is twofold. First, I'm willing to admit that my knowledge base is woefully lacking once we leave Earth. Everything that I know is based off of information that was lovingly bestowed upon me by the friendly folks at NASA, along with my local government-run public schools. So, how much of that I can trust and believe remains to be seen. But it makes the average person upset when you point out that believing everything you're told by someone else about something you've never personally seen or experienced yourself is actually faith. And I've done multiple videos in the past that have spelled out exactly why I don't have a lot of faith in our public school systems, or especially NASA. I mean, it kind of makes me laugh, some of the things that NASA has put out over the years.
Made possible by computer graphics.
They could come out tomorrow and say they found a new Earth-like planet, or 12 Earth-like planets, or 100,000 Earth-like planets.
Made possible by computer graphics.
How would I know either way when all of my information comes from one single untrustworthy source? NASA, by the way, and this is just an aside that I have been meaning to go off on at some point, but I just had to find a video to tuck it in. That's the same agency that last year came out and told us that despite the fact that we're all personally responsible for global warming and we harm the planet simply by breathing, farting, and existing, on the flip side of that, they claim their man-made, military-made VLF bubble that's around the planet, which started forming in the 1960s, that's great and should not be questioned at all because it supposedly protects us from space weather. And despite having a budget of millions and millions of dollars, they take the time to let apparently a high school-aged intern animate some really lame video showcasing why a military-created, man-made, very low-frequency bubble around the planet is actually really great for us somehow.
Scientists have discovered a human-made barrier around Earth, protecting against the natural particle radiation in space. They believe the bubble was formed by very low-frequency waves, or VLFs. VLFs have been found to interact with the particles in space, affecting how and where they move.
Made possible by computer graphics.
And this is despite the fact that former CIA contractors, like the creator of the God helmet, Michael Persinger. This is a declassified CIA document that I got through FOIA requests for some work he did for the CIA, having to do with experimental dream telepathy, clairvoyance, and geomagnetic activity. See, there's his name. Former CIA contractors have written books discussing the biological effects of VLF and ELF on every living thing on this planet, right down to our hormones, our brains, and our circadian rhythms. But don't question NASA, because they said their military-created VLF energy bubble is wonderful for the planet. End of discussion.
Made possible by computer graphics.
That having been said, no matter what is or isn't lurking out in outer space, I am of the opinion that the concept of aliens has been nothing but a wonderful boon to both NASA's whole existence and the military-industrial complex since at least the 40s. All manner of black budget technology and experimentation can be performed and written off as aliens. It's perfect. It's one of those perfect conspiracies because people can talk about it all day and debate it and get into big fights over it, and people do all the time. There are whole dark corners of social media dedicated to people fighting about this. Why? Because it can't be fully proven or disproven either way. The system loves to promote the idea of aliens. And this is what I don't understand. Every other thing that I've ever researched, and I have not researched aliens, I'm just going to tell you right now, that's not been one of my research areas. I've researched some of the very shady characters that seem to be surrounding alien disclosure, like the Clintons and the Rockefellers, but that's another story for another time.
See this? That's a billionaire and a president's wife meeting.
Everything else that I've ever researched, the system doesn't like to promote the truth about it. So why anyone would think that the same system that lies about all of this other stuff, which is a huge list of things, why anyone would think that same system is just chomping at the bit to tell you the truth about aliens just doesn't make any sense. And the system has loved the idea of promoting aliens ever since the disputed cause of mass panic when Orson Welles performed a dramatic radio adaptation of The War of the Worlds for Halloween 1938.
Intellects, vast, cool, and unsympathetic, regarded this earth with envious eyes and slowly and surely drew their plans against us.
And I've noticed recently the alien thing is coming back pretty hardcore. And it makes me wonder if we're finally in line for whatever the big reveal is that they've been building up to with all this decades of alien propaganda. Alien propaganda which hasn't just been profitable in the Hollywood sector, but is politically profitable. Ronald Reagan wasn't the only one to point out that the threat of aliens could unite the planet under a world government.
Perhaps we need some outside universal threat. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
And it was reported that during a 1992 Bilderberg conference in France, war criminal Henry Kissinger said, quote, "Today America would be outraged if UN troops entered Los Angeles to restore order. Tomorrow they will be grateful. This is especially true if they were told that there were an outside threat from beyond, whether real or promulgated, that threatened our very existence. It is then that all the peoples of the world will plead to deliver them from this evil. The one thing every man fears is the unknown. When presented with this scenario, individual rights will be willingly relinquished for the guarantee of their well-being granted to them by the world government." I mean, look around. What are we on the third X-Files reboot now? I think they just rebooted the reboot. Again, years of research here, and I'm saying the system is not huge on promoting the truth or the reality. It's usually promoting the system's agenda. And this is the point that we're at. I saw this the other day, and I had one of those Looney Tunes moments.
Whoa, Campbell! Whoa! Whoa! Whoa, Campbell! Whoa!
If you were born in, I want to go with the late 70s, the 80s, or the early 90s, you're going to remember the punk band Blink-182. Probably most well known by the average person for that video where they're running down the street naked, singing about how immature they are. I mean, I liked them already at the time I was a teenager, but one of the band's former frontmen, Tom DeLonge, is currently making the rounds as an alien disclosure truther, earning credibility in that crowd. First, when WikiLeaks revealed that he'd been conversing with Clinton campaign chairman John Podesta about aliens. And recently, he's even been named the 2017 UFO Researcher of the Year by OpenMinds.tv.
Rockstar Tom DeLonge, who is seeking to expose a vast UFO cover-up within the government.
He's also been on Joe Rogan talking about, and this is his quote, not mine, the advanced aerial threat of UFOs.
So you're obsessed with UFOs, right? Is that safe to say?
It's safe to say, but it's not so much just the UFO itself. I mean, I don't call them that anymore. We call these advanced aerial threats. They're different, but
threats.
See, he doesn't call them UFOs anymore. They're advanced aerial threats now. But we will get to that in a second. DeLonge, the son of an oil company executive who founded Blink-182 with co-lead vocalist Mark Hoppus, son of a Department of Defense employee who designed missiles and bombs at a California Navy testing center, recently quit the band Blink-182 and was easily able to raise $2.5 million to found a new company called To The Stars.
that started me out near D.C. taking some other high-level meetings, and closed the door, looked me in the eye, and says, "Okay, I'm going to introduce you to somebody." Puts me on the phone with a general, and so I flew up to NASA, actually, NASA.
And this is, you just have to see this.
So when you look at the people that are a part of my company, it's Undersecretary of Defense and Senior Intelligence Service.
This is a crazy list of people who now work for him as the president of this company and what they're doing. And they got this really vague mission statement, which doesn't really mean anything when you just read it, not really. But when you skip down, look at the top 4 things that they're going to be doing in the science category, which they claim is challenging conventional thinking. They're going to develop a worldwide digital database cataloging different types of supranormal experiences with the goal of creating proprietary algorithms to find detailed patterns and correlate them with other academic research. Then they're going right to brain-computer interface technologies to promote that. Engineering the space-time metric by developing next-generation aerospace propulsion technologies. And then telepathy, exploring the location in the brain where this phenomena is centered and developing protocols for its enhancement and use.
I wasn't looking to force disclosure, and I wasn't looking to be rogue and break secrets. I was like, look, I know what's going on here, and you guys are doing a kick-ass job, and I would have done the exact same thing should I have been the guy at the top that had to make some really hardcore decisions 70 years ago.
So he's the president. His vice president of operations is this guy who spent 25 years as a CIA operations officer and has spent all of his retirement working primarily as a consultant for the intelligence community, where he does CIA tradecraft training. Then you have Dr. Hal Puthoff. Dr. Hal Puthoff is one of the main leading figures in CIA Operation Stargate, which is basically what they did after MK Ultra. It's part of where MK Ultra went.
The people I'm surrounded with and myself, are very close to this stuff. But the physics, the physicist that's a co-founder of my company, To the Star, he's a Nobel nominee. He wrote the book on plasma physics.
What's his name?
Hal Puthoff, Dr. Hal Puthoff. And he created remote viewing. Do you know what remote viewing is?
Yeah.
He's the creator of the CIA psychic spy program.
When I say whoa, I mean whoa!
And he spent years doing that. He also regularly advises NASA and the DoD. They were doing all the remote viewing stuff, which they made a huge joke out of in Men Who Stare at Goats. Then you've got this guy as their aerospace division director, which is a good place for him to be since he spent 31 years as the program director for advanced systems from Lockheed Martin Skunk Works.
Steve Justice was head of advanced programs at the Skunk Works, and the Skunk Works are who built, the famous secret bases you hear about. Skunk Works did, the U-2 spy plane, the SR-71 Blackbird, the L-117 stealth fighter, and
it's all Groom Lake out there,
all
right?
that kind of stuff. And he literally was in charge of all the advanced programs. So, you got the boss and you got him.
And this guy was just recently all over the news last fall because he was the guy over at the Pentagon who was running Senator Harry Reid's Advanced Aerospace Identification Program, which was a black budget, multi-million-dollar program to identify the aerial threats that Tom DeLonge talks about. Then you have this guy who spent 20 years in the federal government, including as Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence in the Clinton and Bush administrations. That's his National Security Affairs advisor. You have several genetics technologies consultants like this guy. You've also got a brain function and consciousness consultant whose past honors include a certificate of commendation from the CIA for, quote, significant contributions to the mission of the Office of Research and Development. That whole sentence right there, if you read through MKUltra or familiarized yourself with that program at all, just saying that sentence to you should be really terrifying, because it is. Then you got another guy who worked for the CIA for 30 years, another biotech guy, and then you have a biomedical research scientist who's also an attorney. This is a very serious list of people. I guess even saying that's an understatement.
The technology not only exists, we've figured out how to play with it, but I'm not going to really get into that here. That is what we're doing at my company, though. That is the announcement. So
when you say that all this technology exists, have they explained this to you, or have you seen it physically?
Oh, I haven't seen anything physically like that. I wouldn't be allowed to go anywhere if that does or doesn't exist.
So they've just explained to you that this exists? And that this is in the hands of the U.S. government?
I think no. I don't want to get into that kind of stuff. But if you don't mind.
But why is it that you want to not get into certain things?
Well, I don't want to I represent more than myself these days.
Right.
So I definitely have to watch what I say.
According to theoutline.com, this project is supposed to help our feeble sheeple brains cope with the massive paradigm shifts that will occur once the aliens show up.
And everybody would look frozen. So you literally could fly around and grab a Coke out of someone's hand and put it in someone else's hand. It's really...
Where are you getting this from?
Well, take a wild guess. Look at the people I'm surrounded by,
So the people you're surrounded by are telling you this? Is that what it is?
Well, I don't want to get into that, but...
And while Tom DeLonge is running around, picking up alt media cred, acting like he's scared of advanced aerial threats from space, I think his list of employees and their stated goals are pretty alarming, and that's right here on the planet. I guess I just keep thinking about what Arthur C. Clarke said, that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Even though we think we know what all technology they've got because everyone's running around with smartphones and computers and everything, I believe that what the average person doesn't know about technologies that have been created under black budgets for decades, that's probably advanced enough these days to fool anyone into believing anything exists.
Why you? What is it about what your message was?
Because
what your idea was that made them want to tell you some top secret shit that they've tried to keep away from the American people. Well, you take a guy who's like a big celebrity who's in a huge rock band like you, and you just say, hey, meet me in an airport. I'm going to tell you about a life form that we found during the Cold War because you're famous or because you know things?
No, because I have a service. So it's not. It sounds easy when you play it like that, but
service.
A service. Like, what can you do for them that they need help with?
And what could you do?
Communication.
They look to you for a spokesperson role?
I wouldn't say spokesperson role.
Communication role?
A communication role. It makes more sense.
So they would give some information to you and you would get it out to people.
And in the meantime, if the truth really was out there, X-Files style, I don't know why anyone would believe any of these people would ever tell us.